Expect the best used car deals guaranteed. Visit arnoldclark.com.
Welcome to Peter and Roughie's football show, sponsored by Arnold Clark. I'm Peter Martin, Alan Ruff and Hugh McDonald with me here in the studio tonight. Next Thursday, Steven Naismith will be back with us. Got a bit of an important meeting to go to. Don't worry about it. It's not on the debacle of Hearts, although we will talk about Hearts and their predicament. We've got a statement coming from Anne Budge. We'll also be looking at Scotland against Austria tonight, reflecting on some of the results from last night involving the home nations and look towards the matches taking place tonight for those World Cup qualifiers. So you'll hear from Steve Clark, you'll hear from the Scotland captain Andy Robertson. You can give us your thoughts and your prediction on that as well. Hit the follow and the share button on our Facebook, and if you like your YouTube as well, then hit the subscribe button and you'll get all the unique video content that we have. Roughie and Hugh ready to talk about Scotland. Of course, there's a former Scotland captain who's confirmed that he'll be leaving Celtic. This is what Scott Brown had to say today on his departure from Celtic Football Club, a club that he's been with for 14 years. I'd like to sincerely thank Peter, Dermot and the Celtic board for their tremendous support over so many years. We have always enjoyed a great relationship and always worked closely together to bring our fans as much success as possible. I would also like to thank the great Celtic managers I've had the good fortune to work with, and also so many teammates, and of course the Celtic fans who have given such phenomenal support and backing over the years. I have always given my best to the club and always wanted the best for our fans. We have enjoyed some fantastic moments and successes together, dominating the game in Scotland so regularly. And he goes on to say, it is a huge decision to leave this magnificent club, which has been such a massive part of my life for so long. But he says this is now a new opportunity for me and a new chapter. Celtic will never leave me and the club will forever be in my heart. So that's what Scott Brown had to say on his departure from Celtic and the confirmation that he'll be joining Roughie Aberdeen on a 2-year contract, player coach.
Yeah, I think you just said there, the 14 years have been absolutely incredible. I think the Celtic fans will be with him all the way. I think any time he comes back to Parkhead, he will get a tremendous reception for what he's done at the club. And it's obviously a new opening for him. You know, he obviously sees something in Aberdeen or building to the future, whether it's in coaching or management or whatever. And I have to say, I just find it a strange one going to Aberdeen. You know, they're going to be third no matter what they do. You know that, but it's his decision. You know, I think there could have been bigger things on the horizon, but it's his choice.
What do you mean there could have been bigger things on the horizon?
Well, I think with what he's done in the game, you know, if he'd have waited, you know, there might have been openings for him, maybe abroad or whatever. I just find the Aberdeen one a strange one to pick.
Why? Because they're not capable of winning anything?
Yeah, not capable of winning anything. You know, that as a team, you know, we know they're going to be third all the time. And I don't think he's going to make them any better. But he will maybe influence some of the players at the club, and maybe that's what he sees.
Oh, that's an interesting point you just made there. I'm going to read out the statement from Aberdeen, then I'll come back to that point on you. This is Scott confirming his move to Aberdeen, which will take place at the end of this season. There is no doubt I had a lot to deliberate when deciding my next steps, particularly after enjoying 14 successful years at Celtic. However, the opportunity to join Aberdeen, a club entering an exciting new period with my former teammate Stephen Glass now at the helm, was one I couldn't pass up. Once this season concludes, I'm looking forward to joining Stephen, the playing and coaching staff and everyone at Aberdeen FC. I am totally committed to the challenge that lies ahead in meeting the ambitions of the club and its fans. I still feel I've got a lot to give, not only on the pitch, but in a broader capacity as I embark on my coaching journey. I will be relentless in my quest for success for Aberdeen. So this is the start of his coaching, which I think he's keen to progress, Hugh. Picking up on Roughie's point there, you know, will he make them better? In my mind, I disagree with Roughie. I think you're damn right he'll make them better. Even their best player is nowhere near Scott Brown.
Yeah, I think he'll make them better, and I think he'll make them better by his very presence. He made Celtic better by his very presence. There's a strange thing about Scott Brown, you know, that if you if you look at about in the years that I've watched, I think it's 8 decades I've watched Scottish football. Scott Brown gets nowhere near the best Celtic 11. Nowhere near it, because there's much better midfield players in the time. But where he does rank high is as a legend. He is an official copyright trademark on it, club legend. His level of achievement has been extraordinary. And his level of making players around him, galvanising a team. If you talk to anybody, as you know, Peter, if you talk to the players, quietly at functions or whatever, his influence on the team is extraordinary. He wields a great sense of power, and he does it benevolently there. He kind of runs a really good dressing room at Celtic, and I think he'll do so at Aberdeen as well. And I think it's, to break off, we'll discuss it more in due course, but to break off and say, I think Aberdeen's the best place for him, Peter, because I think it's good for him to sever his links with Celtic, because there'd be so much emotional baggage there. Go with his mate up north, learn his trade, learn how to coach. He's still going through his badges. I think he's playing the long game here, Peter, and I think it's a smart game.
Yeah, the other thing I think, Roughie, on this one, I mean, listen, we got a lot of people here saying, do you think the Aberdeen supporters will accept him? I mean, I don't think there's a great hurdle to get over. I can tell you of many players who lots of clubs would have thought, will the supporters accept him? If you have the commitment, if you give your all, if you are a battler and a fighter, Ruffy, I can think of our very own Darren Jackson, Hibs player, Hearts player, Celtic player. He gave his all for every one of them, and you could understand how the fans embraced him. I think of another player who was a Celtic player who was at Hibs and Hearts and moved to Aberdeen, Paul Hartley. Paul Hartley was embraced by the Aberdeen fans because he gave every ounce of his blood for the club that he played for, Ruffy. And I think that's why people will love him. I mean, I must admit, we've got a lot of fans on here who clearly don't like Scott Brown for the reason that can only be described as moronic. But as a footballer, 14 years ago, Ruffy, had Rangers conducted their business properly, he would have been a Rangers player, and he would also have been a legend at Rangers as well.
Yeah, I think once he gets to Aberdeen, I think the first 50-50 that he wins and goes right through, whoever he's playing against, the Aberdeen fans will take to him, because that's what kind of player he is. He's a winner. He'll show everybody round about him that this is the level you've got to be at. And I don't have any problem with the Aberdeen supporters, taking to him. They will, because they'll see that he's a leader on the park, and he wants to win games, and that's what Aberdeen will have to do. Have to buck up their ideas a wee bit. They fell off the pace a wee bit, and they'll be hoping that he can change that.
And when you think of those 14 years, he's one of those guys that comes into that kind of a Jock Stein mould. He may not have arrived as a Celtic fan, but I think he leaves as a Celtic fan, Hugh.
Yeah, and the greatest injury he'll have is that repetitive strain injury, Peter, with lifting trophies. It's astonishing what he's achieved. An unprecedented dominance of Scottish football. He's been at the core of it, and has become really part of the fabric of the club. If you're around the clubs, for example, if as a pressman, if you're ever invited to a club's charity event, Scott Brown was around that. If you were invited to any sort of major announcement, Scott Brown would be around that. I thought it was a really intriguing scene. When on the television once, when I think it was when the revolution, the Rogers Revolution was starting, and the door opened, and there was sitting there was Peter Lawwell talking cosily to Scott Brown, and I think that indicated his influence at the club. That he would have been consulted on things. I'm not saying he was a veto. I'm not saying anything like that at all. But I think I think playing matters at the club. He was central to it and absolutely integral to the greatest era of domestic dominance enjoyed by Celtic.
Yeah, I can actually think of. I don't think there's too many, Roughie, that have got 10 Premier League medals. I can think of Richard Gough because he get nine at Rangers and one at Dundee United. I don't think there's a very, very select band of players who have 10 Premiership medals, Roughie.
No, I think if you add the cups as well, the Scottish Cup, the League Cups, I would doubt if there's anybody would beat that. Although somebody will be very, very near to him. But the dominance of him being the skipper at the club, and everything that they've won is absolutely amazing. And as you are saying, if you ask any players that were in these teams, he would be the motivation. I'm sure he would be in the dressing room. He'd be the driving force. And I keep harping back to him, even when he plays with Scotland or he plays with Celtic, that stare he's got in the dirt in the tunnel as the two teams are waiting to come out. He's so focused in everything that he's going to do would rub off in any team.
Yeah, and the one other element of this that we haven't encountered, Hugh, and we have to take into consideration, Scott Brown, I think maybe if he's got 1 or 2 years left playing in that park, will give his all. I think it's a great signing for Aberdeen, but it's not the last. I think the key here is I don't think, if I'm being critical, I don't think Aberdeen pushed the boat out to look for any manager. I think it was already preordained that Stephen Glass was getting it. So I think anybody that was throwing in an application was wasting their time, and I feel that whole charade that Dave Cormack get into with the fans saying we'll look at all the best candidates was a lot of nonsense. I think he picked Stephen Glass. The big question is for me, it's a gamble. He's an inexperienced boy. And I'm curious to see the type of player he signs, because he better sign players with a bit of creativity, a bit of backbone, because Brown will go through them.
Yep. But I think Brown will be integral to that as well, Peter. I mean, he's now there as a player coach. Stephen Glass will be relying on Scott for many things. But I think one of the major things will be the state of the Scottish game. What do we need? What do we need in this team to win games? What do we need in this team to keep our head above water? And I think he'll be relying pretty heavily on Scott's more recent knowledge of the game. I agree with you with the Dave Cormack point, Peter. I mean, the dogs in the street have been barking Stephen Glass's name for a year at Aberdeen or more. So it was never a surprise that he was coming. I think the Scott Brown thing, it makes sense when you know of their friendship. But I think that's a real ramping up Aberdeen, and I think Scott Brown will. In fact, I know that Scott Brown will have the discussions with Stephen Glass about Aberdeen's ambitions, and he'll have his input in it. I think it's a really exciting move.
Yeah, good luck to Scott Brown. I'm sure there are lots of well-wishers out there. I'm sure there are lots who don't wish him well, but basically that's because, quite simply, in games, he was one of those players that I think people who are not of a Celtic persuasion for the last 14 years love to hate him. The one thing I would say, Roughie, over the 14 years, just as a finishing point on Scott Brown, is when you look back over his 14 years, not only was it littered with winning medals, he was a key player. He was a driving force on that side. He epitomised what they were all about. And he went through a lot of tragedy as well. He'd sampled the joys of being a friend alongside Tommy Burns. He'd sampled Tommy Burns' kindness when his sister sadly passed away. He's had the highs and the lows, the heartache and the joy.
It's the same we keep saying, that footballers are just human beings like everybody else. You see them on the park and you think that's the kind of person they are. It's not the kind of person they are at all. When they're away from football, they have their lives to lead. They do a lot of charity work that people don't see. They have a lot of feelings, as you say, family troubles, and you have to get over that. So, I think he's kept everything to himself, right through this time. And I'm sure he's had a lot of ups and downs personally, like everybody else, but on the football park, he hasn't let that bother him at all. He's been the same Scott Brown for 14 years.
Yeah, okay. Hearts, Hibs, Rangers topics coming up. We'll hear from Steve Clarke, the Scotland manager, and the Scotland captain, Andy Robertson, very shortly. Just one other story which is doing the rounds, which I think would be as well to get your thoughts on, guys, and I'm going to be obviously quite critical on this one. The bookies have now got Roy Keane at 4-5 on to become the Celtic manager. Now, that doesn't really mean anything. I've had my say on, I think Dermot Desmond will have picked his man and will be ready. There's a talk of Man City's Fergal Harkin as the director of football coming in as well ahead of next season. If it's Roy Keane, I'm sorry, Hugh. I don't get the logic on it. I know Martin O'Neill has been singing his praises of his role as an assistant at Aston Villa and the Republic of Ireland, but for me, the credentials don't stack up to the next Celtic manager.
Absolutely not for me. Absolutely not. I mean, I'd be shocked if Celtic went down that road. I mean, his managerial record alone is mediocre to poor. His man management has proved to be, shall we say, the euphemism, a problem at certain places, including Peter, the Republic of Ireland, where Martin O'Neill was his gaffer. There was problems with Harry Arter. There was problems with with many a right few others in the team as well. There was talk in sort of question and answer sessions in Dublin about with John Walters, the Irish player, about sort of almost schoolboy stuff. Come round to my door and I'll see you. I'll give you my address and come out. We can sort it out there. I mean, just stuff that's you don't want or need. What Celtic need is somebody to come in as a coach and coach the team and bring together all the disparate parts of the team and improve them. I mean, Peter, I've not written off certain people at that club, and I haven't done so because it's basically a year they've been there, Peter, and you can give them some leeway to turn it around. I'm thinking, for example, on Barkas. I know there's great criticism of Barkas, but I would be Barkas is a highly rated international goalkeeper, right? He's had one disappointing season at Celtic. I think a good coach can turn that around. I think a good coach can turn other players around as well. I think there's a facility there. I mean, see, if you go back, Peter, to Scott Brown, there was a case before Brendan Rodgers came in that Brendan Rodgers' first decision should be to get rid of Scott Brown. And I don't think there would be an outcry in the press or amongst the fans if that had been Brendan Rodgers' first decision. But because Rodgers is a top-class coach, he came in and he revitalised Scott Brown. That's what Celtic needs. Celtic need a top-class coach.
Yes, I agree with you on that point. I disagree with you on the likes of Barkas, and I take your point on Scott Brown when Brendan Rodgers come in. The problem I have is if there are, and there will undoubtedly be one or two who will be galvanised, re-energised by whoever the manager is, but I think the percentage is low. I think there have been signings that are not fit to wear that jersey. I think there are loan signings who will go back, and I think there are some who've just wasted and taken money under false pretences at Celtic who need to be emptied in double quick time. And that needs a strong manager, and I also think it needs a good coach who's got a plan to play football the way Celtic want it to be played, because at times, Roughie, it's been a hard watch for the fans, the way they've gone through this tippy-tappy, completely and utterly boring football without any flair on their side to go and create and get past a man and do something special. My God, I've heard Celtic fans longing for somebody to trap the ball with their back end again, such as the dearth of talent that can go past a man and do something special.
Yeah, I don't think there's been any structure to the signings. In the last couple of years, I think I would say the majority of people who have come in have failed. There has been one or two have been a success, but when you're a team at Celtic, you've got to identify players that are going to hit the ground running. And the goalkeeper obviously is a perfect example of that. Q might be right; he might be a £4.5 million goalkeeper, but any time you play him now, unless he does something special, he's going to be a risk. So that might change. There might be things. I mean, I know we see outfield players need time to bed in. Maybe that's the case with him. He might be the first goalkeeper that needs to bed in. But back to the Roy Keane one, I think the Roy Keane as everybody would know, is good as a pundit. He's good value on the telly. But I don't think that's the kind of manager that you want running a club as big as Celtic. And if you look at his run-in with the media and all the strops that he's had, I don't think you can do that. I think you've got to be professional enough, to deal with the issues. You might not believe this, but I actually read a book. I actually read Niall Quinn's book, and half of it was about Roy Keane. And that just shows you, that the run-ins that you had with him and the things that were going on behind the scenes. So I really think you need a strong manager to come in, and we'll have to wait and see who that is.
Yeah, well, I can see the headline on tomorrow's programme, and quite a lot of papers will pick up on that. Roughie reads book sensation.
I'll say
it'll be all over the place.
I have to say there was lots of pictures.
Yeah, I knew there would be, Roughie, to be perfectly honest with you. But to be honest with you, some people have said to me here, the bets have actually stopped. They're not taking any more bets on Roy Keane. Well, I have to be honest with you. Not for me, but it depends how Dermot Desmond's thinking about it. You can give us your view on it, Roy Keane or someone else that you think. I've laid my marker down on Steve Clarke because I think he's a coach, proper coach, and can do it. So we will see. Listen, controversy all over the place, things to talk about. Steve Clarke on the way with Andy Robertson, but what about Hearts? Some would view it as a scandalous result. Some of my Jambo mates are absolutely fizzing about it, Hugh, beaten by Brora Rangers. And now, I'm just looking here now, this is a Brora side I hadn't played for 71 days, but it looks as if there's protests on the horizon. Anne Budge has come out. She's made a statement on this just to warn the Hearts fans. The board, management and staff understand and share the anger and strength of feeling being expressed by our fans following what was a totally unacceptable performance and result on Tuesday evening. It was completely unacceptable and fell way below the standards that we set. We respect the right of all our supporters to make their voices heard and feelings known in a peaceful and law-abiding manner. However, we are aware that there is the suggestion of a fans' protest at Tynecastle Park on Saturday. We don't need to remind anyone we are still in the midst of a pandemic during which our focus has at all times been on ensuring the safety and security of everyone at Tynecastle, nor do we need to remind you that it is unlawful for crowds to gather in public places due to current restrictions. We must therefore urge all fans in the strongest possible manner not to congregate at Tynecastle Park on Saturday. Okay, it doesn't get any stronger than that because clearly, and like many of the Hearts board will be saying, this is a pandemic, stay safe, save lives. That's a great message. The top paragraph, however, tells me that I don't think she can afford to be as loyal to Robbie Neilson as she was to Craig Levein, because I think the Hearts fans, are on a short fuse, Hugh.
And they've every right to be, Peter. If you look at, the way, first of all, point one, the way the Hearts fans have supported their club financially, morally, physically, has been absolutely outstanding. From the depths of financial meltdown to getting back on their feet. I think the second point is, if anybody ever thought that the difference between the real business world and the football business world, they just have to look at Anne Budge, who obviously is very, very successful in what we call the real business world, but has been absolutely calamitous at the helm of Hearts. It's been a succession of really dreadful decisions. You've had you had the Cathro Farago, then you had Craig Levein as both manager and director of football. You had bringing in a German coach mid-season to save a season, who was going to, by all his trademarks, change the culture of a club, and that was going to take time. When what you wanted was somebody to come up in and say, quite simply, like a John Robertson, let's get organised, let's get this season done and dusted, get over the line, let's finish 9th or 10th or whatever, and we take it forward next season. They had the absolute mayhem of the new stadium, which 12 hours before it was due to open, you'd still have people going around expecting it. It's been a trial and a tribulation for Hearts, followed by relegation, followed by I feel, the deeply misguided legal action, which she forced herself in a corner and had to really take because of the rhetoric, and spent, 600,000 on it. And now a situation where you get beat, not by a Highland League team. Brora Rangers, by the way, I think easily a League One team, Peter. I really do, that in quality. But a team that's not played for 71 days. It's a scandal.
Yeah. Now that you have, from your own memory, which I think is absolutely impressive, now that you have categorised all the monumental failures, forget sacking Robbie Nielsen, Roughie, sack the chairwoman. She's made a complete back end of it. I mean, there was nothing there that he missed. He managed to nail every catastrophe that she's been at the helm with. I do back her, I have to say. I do back her on the legal challenge. I thought it was worth the fight because of what I still believe was such, it was such an unbelievable act, lacking in compassion, and had to be challenged legally. Relegating Hearts just because of their position and the fact that they could still have got out of it. I thought it was scandalous. And Roughie, I know, shares that view, since Partick Thistle have played Hearts in 55 friendlies since then. But I'll have to tell you, Roughie, Hugh has just catalogued one disaster after another. And for me, remember, this is a Robbie Nielsen who was almost chased out of town the last time by the Hearts fans.
Yeah, well, as you know, it's very difficult for me to criticise a parent club, but it has been a disaster. It has been a disaster. There's no getting away from it. That result is unacceptable, and they'll have to deal with it. But as I said the other day there, at the beginning of the season, the board would have sat with Robbie Nielsen and said, your remit is to get us into the Premiership, and that's what his biggest thing will be. Okay, they'd want a cup run, yeah, you'd want a bit of success. And there will be protests at the weekend. We've seen it. It just seems to be the thing just now, whether it's 5 or 6 or 10 or 1,000 or whatever. The Hearts fans have put everything into that club and they want success. But I have to say, the same fans that will be protesting maybe this weekend will be joyous in 3 weeks' time when their club gets promoted to the Premiership. But it doesn't hide what's going on the football park. They just don't look good enough. And Robbie Nielsen will be judged eventually, probably when he gets into the Premier League.
Yeah, okay. They've got a budget that would sink the Bismarck, Hugh. So it's well expected that they were going to run away with that league. They've got such an array of talent sitting on the bench for the Championship. And I use the word talent very carefully. But now suddenly, you're looking, you're saying to yourself, Christoph Berra's come out and said they haven't been playing well for weeks. Now that is damning, to say the least. This is a team that he's been building on his own, and then the manager comes out with the excuse that there's still this kind of a, feeling of injustice and, not really being at it from some players because they were relegated unfairly. I mean, I just think that's a lot of nonsense.
That Peter is absolutely preposterous. That just stuns me. That kind of good players, good professional players should be playing on the day, right? On the day. That's what it is. Kick-off time. No, sort of resentments of what could have been. What is at the moment? What is at the moment of a Championship club? Buckle down, get out of it. We know now, Peter, because of, I think all of us have become avid football watchers on the television during COVID. Hearts have been widely available on the TV. I've watched them very regularly on the television, and their performances have ranged from the disappointing to the shocking. There've been some really, let's be frank, there's been some dross in there, absolute dross, and not in any way sort of indicative of the level of talent that they've got. There's international players at Hearts.
Yeah,
and you're struggling against our growth.
Yeah, you're right, Hugh. I mean, there's there's absolutely no defence of the current situation. But what changes will take place, only time will tell. Listen, what about Scotland? Here's the Scotland manager, Steve Clarke, ahead of the big match tonight against Austria.
Good team. I think the strength is probably in the team rather than individuals. Like any Austrian team, good physically, strong, but good technique as well. Dangerous in certain areas of the pitch. We'll set up to try and nullify that, but we want to be on the front foot as well. We want to make sure that we cause them a lot of problems, which I think we can.
He left us.
Piers now headed off to.
I think he's disappeared. Well, you'd be better. You'd be better, Hugh, telling us about all these German players in the Austrian team.
I could slightly disagree, Alan, with Steve Clarke when he says the strength is in the team. It is in the team, but they've got outstanding individuals as well. I mean, David Alaba alone is a worldie. You know, he would be in a contention for, for a selection for a world team, certainly in his recent Bayern form as well. Subitzer at Leipzig's a terrific player as well. And all these players are earning their living in a really competitive, quick, fast, technical league. This is a very good mob, Alan. And I think as well, the worrying thing, we always find things to worry about Scottish football fans. They're good on the road. You know, they're good on the road. I think they've won 3 out of 4 matches on the road. So they're good travellers as well.
Well, we want to get off to a good start. That's a 100% certainty. And of course, we don't want to be the flash in the pan just for the Euros. Andy Robertson's placed special emphasis on is trying to make the World Cup as well.
Look, it'd be incredible. The Euros will be special as it is, but the World Cup's the next level up. You know, you're playing against the whole world. You're playing against, the big countries in South America and Africa and things like that. So, the World Cup is special, and we would love to represent our country there. Of course, all of us would, but we've got a lot of games on our hands to get us anywhere close to that, and we need to be our best throughout the whole campaign.
Yeah, absolutely. We want to get off to a good start, get us on a high, see where we go from there. Of course, we'll still play Israel, which is becoming like a Hearts Partick Thistle fixture for Scotland, and we'll play them. Then we'll play the Faroe Islands as well.
Yes.
But here's the predicted lineup for Scotland. It might change here and there. Will they give Shea Adams the nod on this one? I don't know what you guys make of it there. Marshall, Hanley, Gallagher, Tierney, O'Donnell, McTominay, McGregor, Robertson, McGinn, and then, up front, Dykes, and it could be Christie, it could be Shea Adams from the start, who knows? This is just a possible 11, Roughie. What do you make of it?
I started to shiver when you said Hanley there.
Yes, same here.
I haven't been particularly impressed with him, particularly not a dominating centre-half, balls coming into the box. He doesn't seem to be too reliable. Up front, I do hope he tries to find 2 strikers. I think it takes the pressure off. And obviously, if it's just one up there, I want to see the guy Shea Adam. I want to see him. I think everybody wants to see what he can do. And I think we really need to, you're right there, we really need to start winning more home games. I don't want to be on a wee bit of a downer, but we haven't won any of our last 3 games. We've only scored 1 goal in our last 3 games. We've only won 3 of our last 8, so I think at home we need to start winning. We need to start showing people that we can win at home. Draws aren't any good in this competition. You need to start winning, and I hope we can find 2 goals. I think 2 goals would win the game for us. But as I said yesterday, I'll have a lot of confidence that we've got 2 goals in us.
Yeah, it's a strange thing, Hugh. I don't know if you can remember back all those many, many months ago, but Roughie does have a situation where he always starts off on a downer, and then suddenly he gives you a little chink of hope, and then after that he goes on a downer again. He did that until, of course, we qualified for the Euros. But what do you make of what he has to say? I mean, have we actually got into a sense of optimism when we should really think we haven't really moved on from the despair of the last few years?
I think there was an understandable overreaction, which I was part of, to the Serbia victory and the manner of the Serbia victory, Peter, because it went against the national narrative. You know, it wasn't a glorious failure. We didn't snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. In fact, we persevered and we endured and we came through. I think Steve Clarke generally has got a decent team. I think we know he's got situations, particularly at centre back, that he has to address. But I think Shea Adams comes in and really changes the dynamic up front. This is a really good player. This is an English Premier League striker. You know, this guy could be a game changer for us, Peter. I would actually like to see him start tonight. I wouldn't have any doubts about starting him over Christie, because one of the problems when you look at that indicative starting 11 tonight, and it is only an indicative one, is you look at it and say, who are the players in form there? In that 11, who would you say was in form in that 11? I don't think you would get laryngitis talking about all the guys that are in form at that 11.
No, absolutely. You'd start with McTominay and then work your way down, to be perfectly honest with you. And from my point of view, the other thing that I'm not too happy with, and I'm not going back to the Craig Levein, 4-6-0 formation, Roughie, but I don't know about you, but there's a strange obsession with midfielders trying to get up to support the lone striker. I'd like to see us adopt a more positive approach. I'd like to see us with two strikers. I'd like to see us try and utilise the option of what Dykes offers us, which is a battering ram, a guy who'll work his socks off, Roughie, and maybe Shea Adams can be the benefactor of that. We've got enough in midfield and on the flanks to try and create something. So let's play with two up front. I must admit, Roughie, and you and I were at Wembley in the tunnel. Grant Hanley at the back is not the way ahead. He should be looking for a settled three in there now, and it's not McTominay.
No, you're right. I think McTominay has done enough with Man United to establish himself right in the middle of that midfield and dictating things where runners run about him. But you're right, the flanks are for me are where we should be getting our success. We've been playing with one striker up and we've been getting balls into dangerous areas, and I think Dykes scored off one of them. Fantastic balls across the face of the box, and if you're only playing with one striker, if he misses it, you're done. But at least if you've got two strikers, if he misses it, the next one might be in the vicinity to pick up, what he's missed. So particularly at home, I think we should be going with three at the back. We should be on the front foot and we should be putting teams under pressure. And I really do hope we've got 2 goals in us, because one goal's always, as you know, it's a hard one to sit there. You're biting your nails, wondering what's going to happen. And if it's not the goalkeeper making a fantastic save, to pull us out a hole, 2 goals would make us play better, I think, and give us a wee bit of confidence, because we really need to show it at home.
Yeah, absolutely. Another thing about it, Hugh, is I like strikers who work the socks off. I mean, that was one thing about our strikers of old, and I include Darren Jackson in this, who might not, who himself says he wasn't the most gifted, but what he did, and the Gordon Juries and the Ali McCoys and the Frank McAvennies is they played in the front, but they actually worked their socks off to make sure that any team that was coming out with the ball didn't get it easy coming out with the ball. They were in effect defenders as well.
Yeah, and I don't think you'll find any problem with that with Dykes and Adams. They are really good. They're really good workers, Peter. I think Dykes is sometimes underestimated for his technical ability as well, because he's very good, I think, at not only running the channel, but he's very good at keeping the ball up as well, and his link play has improved. We know he's not in great goal scoring form at the moment. We know that. The facts and the stats tell us that. But that's no reason for the two of them tonight not to put pressure on an Austrian defence, not to put pressure both by pace and all 3 factors: pace, guile, and hard work. I mean, I think that is the way to defend on that front foot. This is a very difficult task for Scotland tonight, Peter, I feel.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. If it is going to be won, it's going to be won by the odd goal, and I hope I've pitched for 2-1, Hugh, I'll go back to Roughie in a minute, but Hugh, this is the predicted Austrian lineup, and the reason why I go to you on this is because you watch quite regularly the Bundesliga, and there's a fair few Bundesliga players there in that Austrian side.
Yeah, and I think, we're talking about it earlier that Stevie Clark was saying that, the strength is in the team, being a team. I agree with that, but they have got stellar talent in that team as well, Peter. Anybody sitting down and watching that game tonight who doesn't, I think most fans now are pretty well apprised with most leagues across the world, but if you're not, you watch a very good, technically aggressive side with good control. One of my favourite players is in the team from Bundesliga. I just love him for his attitude and for his skill. Is Sabitzer. Scotland are facing a right good side tonight.
Give me your prediction.
I would honestly, Peter, and it's not going to be satisfactory for Scotland, but I would take a draw. I think this is a really good Austrian team. I hope I'm wrong. I hope Scotland. It would be terrific if Scotland, could. Imagine if Scotland had 9 points after 3 games, or even a draw in Israel and 7 points after 3 games. What a turbo boost that would be! But I think this is a good Austrian team, and Scotland will be hard, really pressed to get a point.
Yeah. Roughie, I'm going to ask you again because I can't remember yesterday, and I know that because of your contractual obligations, you reserve the right to change your prediction every hour.
Yeah, you're right. I went one each yesterday, but I'm going to be positive. I know I was negative a minute ago there, but I'm going to be positive. I think it's going to be. I really hope we win the game because Austria is the team we need to beat to get that place, the final place. So for me, it's going to be a win. So I'm going to go 1-0 Scotland.
Wow, that is amazing. And don't forget, you can tune in tomorrow when Roughie says, I told you so, if you'd listened to Wednesday's show, not Thursday's. So there you have it. Anyway, you can give us your own prediction on that. You can give us your own thoughts on Stevie Clark's side, who you would like to see in it. A couple of people, let's not forget, Hugh, apart from anything else, there are a couple of players that I think might be able to emerge and enhance this World Cup qualifying campaign as well. I think it might come too soon for them, but there's a growing feeling, and I cannot comment on it at the moment, but there's a real growing feeling that Ryan Gauld should be worth a look. Billy Gilmore, I really hope, can cement his place at some point in the future. So there are players out there that I think still might force their way into his thinking. I just wish there was more centre-halves.
And that's the point. I think people were lamenting the fact that David Turnbull and Billy Gilmore were in the squad. I could really understand that because what does Steve Clark do? Does he drop guys that have got the job done for him already, who are decent players anyway? It's not a matter of being ruthless players. If you were bringing in Turnbull and Gilmore, you would have to drop. You'd have to drop a Christie or a McGregor or whoever. There's only a certain amount of midfielders you can accommodate. I would love, Peter, if you sat me down for my wish list, I would love another striker to complement Adams and Dykes. Although I think they're fine. But my wish list, the Santa letter, is a centre half. Absolutely.
Yeah, you're right. Absolutely. And all this suddenly, and I don't want to get down the argument on it, but it just shows you all this with the hype that surrounded Lee Griffiths as well. And look what's happened there. And we're now looking for another striker from somewhere. But listen, we're Scottish. We're used to creating all sorts of controversy along the way. Some breaking news, and Jim Goodwin's been charged by the SFA for comments made in the Hamilton game. I think that's maybe when he blamed the referee for their equaliser. The hearing will be on April 15th. So that's an interesting one for Jim Goodwin. A wee bit of time facing him in the stand. I would like to pass on our best wishes to Steve Davis, who will break Peter Shilton's record for appearances at international level. I think this is number 126, if my memory serves me correctly. But It is absolutely fantastic. Stephen Davis is an absolute credit to his country, and of course, a thoroughly decent boy for Rangers in 2 spells with the club. He's been fantastic. Once he got a full pre-season in there and was able to get up to speed, you can't hide the talent that the boy has, Roughie. I've got a lot of time for him, and great to see him break the record. And I think actually Peter Shilton sent him a little tweet congratulating him on it, which is quite unusual because Peter usually just sends out tweets for the Conservative Party. So that's great.
No, he's a model professional. It doesn't matter what club he's been at or international football. He's a captain and he leads by example. You never see him anywhere else. You never see him doing anything else but apart from what he does on the park. And I think, again, it's a player you want in the dressing room that people would rub off of. And that is an absolutely incredible 126 caps for your country. It's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. I must admit, I do like to collect good midfielders' jerseys. You know, I've got a penchant for really good midfielders, and he's definitely one of them that comes into that category. He had a great career.
Absolutely, and I think he's very possibly. We'll all be asked to vote, Peter, and the football writers shortly. My pen will be hovering uncertainly over whether to make Player of the Year Alan McGregor or make Player of the Year Stephen Davis. That's how good a season Stephen has had. I watched him last Sunday, Peter, and he does everything so simply but so perfectly. Every ball has the right weight on it, at the right angle, the right pace. Just a technically excellent player. So congratulations on them tonight, because I know how much we've spoken to him in the past, as you know, and we know how much international football means to him.
Yeah, absolutely. Lindsay Buchanan says, hint, Peter, as if I was trying to hint for a jersey from Stephen Davis, Roughie. Which is...
I'm surprised you've not got one already.
I have one. I don't know why. I don't know why Lindsay put that there. I already have one from him, so we're fine. He comes into the category of worthy midfielders. Yeah, good luck to him tonight against Italy. And I don't think he'll be holding on to the shirt. I think he'll take it off and swap it with an Italian player. I'm almost certain he will. Anyway, good luck to him. It's, of course, Italy against Northern Ireland. It's England against San Marino. I don't know about you, Roughie, but every time I think of England against San Marino, I can just see San Marino scoring that goal in the first, 2 minutes of the match, and all hell breaking loose.
Yeah, I don't think that will happen tonight. I was just watching the Sky Sports, the stats on San Marino, what they've done, since they've started. It's absolutely horrendous. So I think any striker that's playing for England tonight will be filling his boots and then trying to boost up your scoring record, because I think it's going to be a hefty scoreline tonight.
Here's a question for you, Hugh, and it's always good. I mean, it's great for us. We just want to get to a tournament. We've got to one. It'd be lovely to get to a World Cup as well. I just wonder if, do you think England got to the semi-finals in 2018? Do you think they've got a European Championship or a World Cup in them to win?
I think certainly they would. I think yes is the answer. I think if I was an England supporter, I would be expecting them to make the next big push. I think they're. Do you know, Peter? The funny thing, Roughie might be able to comment on this. One of the great things in my lifetime and in Ruffy's lifetime would be the absolute class of England goalkeepers. England always had great goalkeepers: Silton, Clements, Banks. We go down the years; they just rolled off. And that production line's I'm deeply unconvinced about Pickford. I really, to the extent that I don't think a team that has aspirations of winning international tournaments can have a Pickford in goal to that level. So, but beyond that, I think they've got good enough defenders. They're very strong in midfield as well, Peter. And Kane up front is a genuine world-class centre-forward. He's not the best centre-forward in the world, despite what you might read in English papers, but he's up there.
Yeah, but for me, I think he's the only world-class player they have, Hugh, and I think you need a wee bit more. I think you need to have 2 or 3 absolute top-drawer players that you look at, you go, they can turn a match. I don't see a Beckham. I don't see a Rooney. I don't see,
Yeah.
I just don't see someone that you looked at before and you thought, there's a Michael Owen. There's somebody that can do something out of the ordinary. I only see Kane. The rest of it
Yeah.
does not suggest to me they can win the tournament.
I think, though, Peter, here's the thing. I agree with you at the moment, but I think a wee rub of the luck. I think a wee rub of green. If players come on the way they should be. Remember, this is a long qualification campaign. I think actually Foden could be that player, and I also think Sancho. I know. Apologies to listeners and viewers, but I'm a great Sancho man as well, and I think the quality of them up front gives the possibility of that thing. You're right, Peter. It's just a possibility now. It's not a De Bruyne. We're not talking about them. But I think they have the possibility to create that and create it quite quickly.
Yeah. If there are two teams, Roughie, that I think have got capabilities to win the Euros, and then of course, depending on the way it all evolves, still have a chance of doing something at the World Cup. It's still Belgium for me. I don't know how long that golden generation can hang on. And the other one is Portugal, who I think have got another clutch of special players.
Yeah, and it just shows you how things have changed, because one of the teams that would all be looking forward to seeing with the wonderful players they had at club level would be Spain. And they're just going through a transitional period just now. I would think Germany would always be there or thereabouts, but I'm watching the Belgium game and De Bruyne the other night. It's just magnificent to see these players who just win games. Just as Hugh said there, I mean, give us Harry Kane, and I would guarantee we would qualify for tournaments just because of that kind of player.
Yeah, absolutely. Good point, Roughie. Listen, to domestic issues again, Hibs have reported their financial figures with a £1.4 million loss over the last year. And that, again, is an indication of how COVID has affected many clubs. Turnover, 8.9, it's down from 10.8. Wages to turnover up from 59% to 74%. Wow. And as I mentioned there, the operating loss of 1.4. Cash position, 5.3 million, down from 5.5, and that, of course, was with sales and season ticket revenue. And the cash balance, 2.6 million. So, I think a lot of Hibs fans will look at that and think to themselves, okay, could have been much worse, but they're there. They're not a bad position, Hugh. Maybe if you get to the situation where you've got the odd John McGinn in there, it always helps. Over the years, you can sell on players. Every club is a selling club in Scotland now.
Yeah, and I think it's my first view of them, Peter. I haven't looked at them closely, but I had a peek before we came on air. My view of it wasn't the car crash I expected. I mean, I think one of the things is wages to turnover. You don't want to get that up at 74%. So there's two ways of doing that.
Oof.
One way is increasing your turnover. Another way is drawing down on the wages. Now, Hibs have been very proactive, as we know, Peter, in recruitment over the winter as well. What they've got is the ace in the hole. They've got players they can sell, Peter. They've got two in particular that they can sell, Porteous and Nisbet. So it's far from being the crisis that might have been expected at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, here's a statement from Ron Gordon on those figures. Your board and I would like to thank all those who supported the club during the 1920 season, especially in view of the challenges imposed on the club and football in general by the COVID pandemic. We are particularly grateful to our season ticket holders, the players and coaching staff, and the entire team at Hibernian FC for their tireless work behind the scenes to help the club navigate the public health and financial challenges of the ongoing pandemic. Gratefully, the vaccine programme combined with the restrictions of recent months are bringing the pandemic under control, and the outlook for football in 2021 is starting to look brighter. We believe that in the foreseeable future, we will be able to welcome you back to Easter Road. That'll be very special, and it'll be a wonderful day for us all. Yes, I share his sentiment on that.
Yep.
And again, there are sellable assets, Roughie, but I think the greatest thing that deserves recognition is indeed the fans, because Scottish football is amazing. See, when you think of the difficulties that people have been under over the last year, how clubs have survived leaves me gobsmacked.
Yeah, and you would be gobsmacked, Peter, if you looked at the donations from supporters. I know they've all bought into their season tickets, but they're sending in donations as we speak. They just want to keep their club alive, and I'm sure every club would be the same, and it's really generous of them, the way the financial situation is just now. But the fans are the ones that are keeping the clubs alive. There might be big donations, there might be wee donations, but every donation counts, and they're the ones that deserve the pat in the back when they're all allowed to come back into the stadiums. And I'm sure a lot of clubs will be showing their gratitude towards them.
Yeah, and with 8,000 fans potentially being allowed into the Carabao Cup final down south, Hugh, hopefully that's the good sign of things to come.
Absolutely. See that last paragraph of that statement, Peter, you read out. My heart was swelling. You know how much we all love to go and watch football. I haven't been to a football game since the first lockdown. I miss it desperately. I miss the atmosphere. I miss being amongst fellow supporters. I miss the sheer beauty of a football game, the sheer shared experience of going to a football game, whether that's at Fir Hill or whether that's in the Westfalen Stadium in Dortmund, or whether it's, I was lucky enough to go down to that new stadium, as you know, Peter, at Tottenham Hotspur, a great day as well. So wherever, or Somerset Park, one of my favourite stadiums. I miss it like an ache. It's as simple as it is, like an ache. I really miss a football match.
Yeah, I don't think you're alone in that. My heart goes out to a lot of people whose life absolutely revolves around football. There are some people who may well stay in their own and love the camaraderie of meeting up with their friends and going to football. So you're absolutely right. And some of the commitment financially, as Roughie has mentioned, is ongoing and leaves you astounded when you think of how families are finding it financially difficult just to get by these days. And the pain is not over. So amazing. Just one little thing before we go, which is, of course, the Rangers rule breakers. This is, of course, Nathan Patterson, Bangani Zungu, Calvin Bassey, Dapo Mabudi and Brian Kinnear will hear their fate at some point later today, I think. They've got a notice of complaint by the SFA for breaching COVID protocols, so they could be facing some discipline from the SFA, which could involve a few games ban if the previous lawbreakers or rule breakers have anything to go by. Hugh, fair comment. It's taken them a while to actually get this one. If this is fast-tracked, my word, it's taken them a while to get them there in the first place, And by the way, on the evidence of today, Hugh, footballers still don't learn their lessons. You only have to look at the front page of some tabloids to see footballers. I don't think they've just grasped it. Don't go out. Don't go to parties.
Quite. I mean, it's stunning the way that some sections or some people have reacted to this pandemic. I expect a suspension, Peter. I expect anything from the low end. I would have said was 3 games, and the high end 5.
Yeah, even with George Edmondson and Jordan Jones looking at what they faced.
I still think that. Yep. I still think that'll be. I think that'll be the level now. I could be completely wrong. I usually am.
Yeah. I don't think their party was as good as the other one.
Yeah, absolutely. It was just. Yeah, I know exactly what you're going to say, Roughie. Don't bother saying it. I did look at the party in the front pages, and I thought, wow, just lots of guys having beer. Not the best. I think I'll pass on that one. Give me a shout when there's a better group.
They insist on you taking your top off as well. I'm not going to one of their parties.
No. You're absolutely right, Roughie. But who are we to argue? If you've got a body like Charlie's, you can take your top off. Anyway, apart from anything else, Listen, we'll wait and find out. We'll discuss that on tomorrow's programme. The good news is we are now optimistic because Roughie's changed his tune. Hopefully Scotland can get the win, and we're all discussing it tomorrow on the programme. A win over Austria would just set us up nicely in these difficult times. Don't forget there's a competition that we're into the last few days of the competition, a chance to win a Diego Maradona canvas. You also have an Xbox and an iPad in it. It's all one prize, PLZ Soccer hat-trick competition. All you have to do is go to our Facebook page, hit the send message, follow the instructions on the competition, and you never know, you could be the lucky winner of all three prizes. We'll announce the winner at the end of the month. Hit the follow button, join the football family on our YouTube channel as well. From Hugh McDonald and Alan Ruff and myself, Peter Martin, Steven Naismith will be back with us next week. Don't worry, he's not in hiding because Hearts are rank rotten. He had something official to do, I'm told. So maybe he'll come out from underneath the bunker and join us next week when Hearts can record a win and all is rosy in the garden again. Anyway, we'll wait and see. To all those who posted messages talking about their team, loving their football, thank you very much. We'll see you tomorrow.
Expect the best used car deals